Please welcome to the stage Yair Attar, CTO and co-founder at Atorio, and Ido Bigger, EVP, CIO and Chief Data Officer at Delek US. Yair and Ido will be presenting Why Most OT Vulnerability Approaches Fail, a risk-based strategy with the Delek US case study.
So, wow, it's definitely the lights are strong, so I hope there's enough audience, but a slight change. We have here with us Christopher Moore, that he'll be representing Delek story with us together. Unfortunately, Ido, as probably a lot of you know, we have some challenges back home in Israel and some flights, also some challenges, so unfortunately he could not get here. But we have Chris that I think can even take it more to the tangible, tactical level. So I'll start with maybe just presenting myself, Yair Attar, CTO and co-founder of Atorio. Prior to that, a bit more than a decade within the Israeli Defense Forces, various positions, but more in the cyber defensive operational side, and responsible for our nation's state incident response and threat hunting teams. And with me today,
thank you. My name is Chris Moore. I lead cybersecurity operations for Delek US. I have about 15 years in OT and IT, specifically around cybersecurity, networking, and operational technology.
So let's see that it works. I have no idea. Great. So what we're going to talk about today, briefly, what's risk management in OT, what does it look like? Some market trends, challenges that we're seeing in different approaches or common approaches today within the OT space, the benefits of a risk-based strategy, what does it really mean? Talking about some customer benefits, use cases, some 5 key takeaways that I think each and everyone should take from this. And then, of course, Chris will present their journey with us, which I think is still ongoing because you'll hear me say along the presentation that this is really a journey. It's not just a market where you can go deploy technology and that's it. It requires people, processes. We're always talking about OT, IT, operational teams, IT security teams, which I'm going to touch as well. So what does risk management looks like? So let's say that I see a house, and I'm not supposed to get in, but I want to get in. So I go to the front door, and I basically see there are tons of security cameras monitoring and causing me some awareness of maybe I want to think twice. But I actually see that the door is quite open. So the main message here is that sometimes we need to look about different aspects, different angles, different, I would say, entry points that at the end of the day are all need to act together or to be integrated into a cohesive approach, because just one type of approach or another. And also, I think what we're seeing a lot of today within the market, there's a lot of focus on reactive-based detection, where this is great and important, but I'm not 100% sure that it's going to catch the next ransomware that might impact operations. Now, talking about those things, let's talk about some market trends. So I think it's clear that there are a lot of cyber attacks and events happening. Let me, by the way, be clear. I think that still the numbers that we're seeing in the market are small. The awareness is just growing, both for the defensive side and for the attacker side. So the numbers are still small. I think it's clear to all of us in this room today that the impact is much more stronger. And I think that also what you're seeing is that what gets to the news is really a lot of ransomwares, because this is what, at the end of the day, maybe is the most impactful type of attack that really provide harm to operations, to safety, to those types of things. And unfortunately, by the way, we're usually hearing those things that become big, and we're not hearing everything. Also, I think, again, it's clear looking at the numbers, they're still not quite big as an IT, but we're seeing, for example, logbit attacks, so ransomware attacks on the rise on even specific industries. An additional trend we are seeing is that a lot of organizations are complaining about the complexity of managing cybersecurity. Different vendors, different solutions, different focus, different stakeholders. It's becoming more and more challenging to manage a cohesive strategy, governance, and have those things in place to talk to each other. What we are also seeing from trends perspective is a lot of investment on digitalization, which is great from an operational perspective, from competitiveness perspective. And from a cybersecurity perspective, we're seeing much more investments starting to go towards risk management or exposure management or cybersecurity validation, making sure that the tools we actually already have in place are doing what they need to do, consolidations, integrations, platforms, and really trying to simplify things. We also understand, especially, I would say, in this market, that we have stakeholders that are addressing this challenge, which are not cybersecurity experts. And when talking about stakeholders, I think, and let me try and map out how we see it when we're engaging with the market. So I would say we usually see three types of major stakeholders, right? The CISOs, the CIO, the management team that is really driving governance, strategy, policies, making sure things are in place, and those types of things, which is important. But at the end of the day, from a technical perspective, we're usually seeing two types of technical stakeholders. So ones that are more from an IT, cybersecurity, analyst type of mindset. Usually when we're going to talk to them, we're going to hear them saying things about early detection. They want to see a lot of alerts. They want to see a lot of raw data. This is one mindset that really focus on monitoring and detection. But when you talk to the operational teams, when you talk to the teams on site, you really understand that they have a different jargon. They are more focused on resiliency. They are more focused on things that come from the predictive maintenance world. And they want to make sure that they are maintaining availability. And they basically want to manage the risk proactively. So I think to some extent, understanding this complex environments of different stakeholders with different needs, and those things need to align. Those things need to collaborate. Because if you ask me, in order to have a successful journey in this space, collaboration is a must, because I've never seen someone from headquarters actually taking an action on an asset on site that have a consequence of impacting operations. So I think where we are seeing very successful journeys is when you have those collaborations, and I'm sure that Chris will talk about it, because this is really what helped to have a successful journey. Now let's talk about some challenges that we're seeing in this space when managing risk and focusing even on vulnerabilities. So I must admit that when we are working with different industries and companies, we're seeing that they have a very big list of items they need to fix, but they don't really know where to start, how to prioritize. And to some extent, I think that today a lot of solutions mislead them, because they're still very focused based on CVSS. They're still very focused or are still more IT-centric type of solutions that require more skill set or know-how. And they're still going to tell you to which patch to update, and we all know that in OT environments, this is quite challenging. So all of those, I would say, drivers, at the end of the day, are not helping you to be cost-effective on the actions that you take. And we are talking about risk management, OT risk-based management approach. What does it mean? So it means, first of all, to have the context of the impact. So safety, reliability, productivity, at the end of the day, to connect the assets, meaning the process, the business unit, in order to really prioritize better. Because at the end of the day, I would say assets in general, but in OT even more, are not born equal. you would like to invest in the ones that really are the most impactful to your organization. I can tell you that even sometimes working with different companies, we say to them, don't go and invest and put all of the technologies and processes and investment that you can in all of your sites. Maybe you have the specific percentage that is much more critical from productivity, from revenue perspective, from safety perspective. Yes, maybe at the end you'll cover everything, but start with the one that matters. To really simplify and contextualize things, to, again, understanding that a lot of the stakeholders are not cybersecurity experts, we need to help them do things in a very simplified manner, what needs to be done first, and then also leveraging existing controls. A lot of the times, what we're seeing, and we talked about it earlier, that, again, patching is usually quite hard, maybe you can actually do more with existing controls or configurations of applications that you have in place right now. So what does it mean leveraging existing security controls? When we are working with companies, I say that there are usually some already past investments. Whether those are firewalls, whether those are endpoint protection, whether those are NAC solutions, whether those are even applications of within, let's take DCS, for example. You'll be surprised how many configurations can be done on the DCS level that will actually help you to protect better and monitor your environment. I will talk about it, by the way, tomorrow on a more technical aspect if anyone would like to be in the presentation. So really, don't reinvent the wheel. You have some solutions in place. Understand what you can do more with them. Understand their effectiveness. We've seen a lot of times that those, I would say, controls in the OT are not managed properly. So, for example, it could be that, I don't know, ports has been open for a specific maintenance window, or it could be multiple things. And nobody really looked at that and made sure that it's getting closed or being managed properly. So really try to first understand what you have and how can you effectively get more. Additionally, integration or an integrated risk-based approach, understanding how you connect those dots together. Because I think building a cohesive approach and not just looking on a siloed type of controls that you have, but trying to see how those dots are connected will also help you to gain more value. And we need to keep in mind that we already invested in those past solutions, so we have team members who are familiar with them. So the whole upskilling, training, and leveraging those past investments is going to be much more easier when we move forward, and there are action items to take. Go close a port in a specific firewall, whether it's a Palo Alto's or whomever. Those things that have been done in the past, so there is some knowledge within the organization. So when we're talking about this journey in a high level, I will say that really starting from first understanding what you have, what type of exposures, what type of vulnerabilities, then adding the context, adding the operational context of those assets, of those types of findings, because again, at the end of the day, you have different business units or different processes with different impact. Go focus on the critical ones. Understand the security posture, but the security controls effectiveness. So really connecting those dots together of how the network is actually configured, what's possible from an attacker standpoint to go from one point to another. So starting to connect these dots, those assets, their vulnerabilities, their gaps and exposures, the controls effectiveness, and basically act on a simulation perspective, what an attacker can do and can he actually exploit. I'll tell you that a lot of vulnerabilities actually that we've seen with many customers we're working with, they're not accessible. Some requires physical access. Some are actually not being leveraged within the network, so you cannot even use the relevant protocol. So again, while connecting those dots together, you really understand that from an exploitability perspective, maybe I don't have that much that I need to take care of, or maybe I can really focus on the ones that are exploitable. And then the last thing would be really, what's the call to action? What's the best call to action I can take? Can I leverage a compensation control? Because it's going to be much more easier to close a port than actually touching the asset itself. So doing this in an automated fashion, ongoingly, which is what we do, is really to help you. And I'm not saying, by the way, and some things could happen occasionally depending on the maturity of the organization, but really this is the journey that we believe will help you at the end of the day even have better return of investment on the technology that you have already in place, people, processes, and get more of what you have. And I think that's what we've seen with multiple organizations that are leveraging this approach and leveraging our technology to do so is some key benefits just to emphasize. So one of the largest automotive OEMs, we are talking about that, again, before they needed the actually more experts to work on the different findings and start connecting those dots manually, where now they can actually do a lot of the things much more easily, but also invest in the vulnerabilities that are actually exploitable. We're talking about an airport use case where before they were just, again, going one by one, and now they are able to focus on the ones that are actually exposed. And we're talking about managing from months of exposure levels to days. In oil and gas, that we're talking about reducing of overall perspectives, 70% of different types of siloed events, things that are happening in the environment that, to be honest, again, once connected, you can start identifying things that are happening from a pattern-based analysis or really help to highlight where to focus and provide more accurate information. One thing that was very interesting with the next example, which is a global pulp and paper manufacturer, is that they were even able to leverage their maintenance teams. So basically start onboarding them, again, no cybersecurity experts, and integrated with their weekly maintenance routines, so that when they go and change a configuration or something like that, the maintenance routines or employees can start addressing that and really helping them to have a much more wider visibility. And the last one is a medical manufacturer equipment, where basically we were even able to help improve the existing controls effectiveness. So my 5 key takeaways, and leave technology aside, I think that at the end of the day, organizations should really embrace risk-based strategies. I think you need to define your key mission metrics, the things that are important for you. And again, tomorrow I'm going to talk about how to hopefully build a more tangible and lightweight type of strategy within those types of environments. I think the second step is really understand what you can do more with the controls that you have. Because I certainly say that in all use cases we worked with companies, we've identified that things could be better based on what they have. I think that we need also to remember prioritization, and again, let's focus on the things that matter. Could be things that are actually more likely to be exploited. And the fourth thing is what I call the unified actionable framework that basically help to create collaboration processes. What we've worked with a lot of companies is sometimes even to go and, let's start with a racing table, understand who's responsible for what, and how can you start creating those processes as an ongoing way to start tackling those things. It's not going to happen in a day, but it's definitely a journey that I think once you start having those things in place, it goes and gets better. And the last thing is really context. Once you have those things and you have the context and you have the priorities based on those impact analysis or business units, this is critical to, or really to help and prioritize everything you're building. Of course, if you have it automated, that's great, but I think that even if not, this is the approach that should be taken in order to start building the organization to manage proactively those cybersecurity risks. And now Chris will share his side of the story from working with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Yair. So we have been on a multi-year journey at Delek US, and it's largely been a business-driven journey. We have, the business has evolved a lot over the last few years, and because of that, we've had to, adapt as a cybersecurity organization, in which Atorio has been a big strategic partner of. But to understand really our journey, you kind of have to understand who Delek US is. So I'd like to do a short video and see if I can get this to play. Is it not gonna? Oh, there it goes. So as you can see, Delek US has grown dramatically. We are a downstream oil and gas provider, and we have a strong record of growth and safety. We are made up of 4 refineries spread across kind of the south central US, 850 miles of crude product transportation, 700 miles of crude oil and gathering systems. We have retail locations, so we're not just, we have to do a lot with PCI, not just traditional OT, as well as asphalt as a side product of as another aspect of our business, and renewables. So we have a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different environments, and different areas where we have to apply technologies and also a lot of driving factors that cause us to evaluate risk from many different perspectives. Our journey with Atorio began a couple of years ago with the BIRD Consortium. The U.S. Department of Energy and Israeli Department of Energy got together along with leaders from the commercial world and research institutions, and we were looking to engage and figure out, how do we move forward? How do we secure this very diverse environment, as well as one that has unique challenges that many of you are familiar with in the OT world? Now, as I was saying, the business was driving a lot of this. Delek has undergone a lot of changes and evolutions. We are doing AI-driven process improvements at our refineries. We are looking at doing drone-based inspections of a lot of our facilities. And many of these challenges have one thing in common. Everything we do, all the sensors we deploy, all the new tools we use, all want more data. They all want more access. So the traditional method of air gap or the illusion of air gap becomes harder and harder to maintain. As you can see here, these are probably very common gaps that everybody in the industry share. All of these are solvable, but I would like to say that the last one, the integration of OT and IT, that's a cultural change. Because of that, that's where you have to start. You have to build those relationships. You have to understand the business. You have to move outside of your comfort zone and outside of your silo. And it's been a journey, as Yair said earlier. We are nowhere near where we eventually want to be, but we are infinitely farther than where we started. Now, as we partnered with Atorio, one of the biggest aspects, our biggest gains that we noticed was integration. We already had a brownfield environment with a number of the tools that you see displayed here. Because of that, we were able, because of how Atorio operates, we were able to integrate and take advantage of a lot of the existing threat intelligence capabilities, risk indicators that already existed in the environment. This allowed us to very quickly kind of bring together a lot of those siloed security environments. Now, as you can see here, on the left is El Al SOC. El Al is the Israeli Airlines, and Ido, who could not be with us here today, is shown there along with Avi Alan, our CISO. They are standing on the left in the SOC, and they come from a very strong environment of cybersecurity, 24-hour operations, and we are building that out at Delek US. Atorio is going to be a primary data point for us as we move forward in looking at threats and operating in a ongoing 24 hours capacity. All of these are tools. All of these are capabilities. We talked about culture. But how do we bring it all together? Playbooks and processes. Writing down a repeatable or even sometimes automated workflow that will allow us to know who the asset owner is, know what the impact of the asset is, understand what the risk based upon the impact of that asset, and then understand where we go and who we talk to when we have to make a change. Because we cannot just go out and patch a system. So in many cases, we have to talk to the asset owner. We have to understand what compensating controls can be put in place because we have to maintain safe operations at all times. And I believe that is everything I have. Yeah.
I don't know if we have a few minutes for some questions, if there are. This is the time. Although we cannot really see you, but but we'll believe you. But if there are any questions about, for Delek specifically, for us, about the journey, about how it looks like, from, I don't know, challenges in this journey, things that we overcome, or each one of us doing this journey. So I think now is the time that you can take advantage of that, if there are any questions to that. Yes.
Determine which is the device that is more exposed.
So,
Well, when you're looking at device exposure, that can be a quantifiable risk of just looking at it from a technical standpoint of what exposures does this device have. It could be as simple as what CVEs does that device have, but that's a very siloed approach. When you also look at it though, you have to look at the environment around the device. How easy is that exposure to reach? Just because it's vulnerable doesn't mean that that vulnerable is exploitable. And so there's multiple levels there. Part of what Atorio can do is by understanding your environment and the architecture with sensors, it takes into account compensating controls and many of the other security assets that you may have in place. Like just because I may have a vulnerability to a new zero-day attack that wants to come in and come into like a level 3 or below environment inside of an OT system, well, if I have firewall sitting in front of it and none of that, that specific traffic type is already disallowed by default, the integrations will, we'll obviously see an alert on it, but the risk will be much less because you cannot actually reach that system. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm wondering more about the discovery process, how you're actually discovering all of these devices and what is the flow that they...
Yeah, so basically we have a variety of ways of collecting data because unfortunately those types of environments are different, right? There's no commonality from even within the same organization. There's a lot of difference between sites and things like that because things have been driven differently from maturity and M&As and etc. So at the end of the day, as we have a flexible platform that can integrate, we also have different variety of ways of collecting data and discover, whether it is fully passively, even offline-based like project files and things like that, or integrations, by the way, with the DCS applications themselves that even helps us to understand the context of the processes and the business processes, to emulating industrial discovery protocols. So variety of ways of discovering the network. And then also, by the way, again, integrating with the security controls to understand their effectiveness. So we're actually analyzing automatically the segmentation in the network. And then we're able to see what's reachable from zone to zone and whether something is actually exploitable. And then you're going to, at the end, hopefully focus on the ones that are actually critical. And one last thing to add to what Chris just mentioned, which is very interesting. I had a recent discussion with a large automotive OEM that said they look with our platform on two different risk levels. One is more of the technical risk, because the vulnerability still exists on the asset, so the asset's risk is to some extent still the same. But organizational risk because I actually have compensation controls that help me to reduce the potential from a bigger scope perspective, right? So again, risk is something that everyone has some different type of concepts and approaches, but we're really trying to, first of all, adjust what we do to the customer language and processes and things like that. But this is, in a nutshell, how we do those things.
If I could add one thing. When we talk about discovering and injecting information in devices, the integrations I can't overstate. The API integrations, the ability to take pre-existing information, like if you have an OT IDS type system already out there, the ability to integrate that into Atorio allows you to start making use of data that you already have existing. So this data can be brought in and kind of gives you a good basis and starting point and second source of truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm seeing some hands, but there's someone over there helping us to. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. For the downstream organizations, there's a lot of complexity in different vendors, so ABB is not same as what Honeywell does, and the way Yokogawa will do is absolutely different. So how is the asset collection information that worked? That's one I would like to learn from you. Second is that you would have seen that in the downstream organizations, different units move for tendering process differently, correct? So sometimes a DCS which was working is no more going to be continuing with that, while the PLC for safety will continue. So how frequently you do this context-based exercise to stay really live with the current state? So that's my two parts of the question.
So you want to start?
Sure. I will tell you that we face that common challenge. We have multiple DCS environments, and they all have very stringent requirements at times. That's why I was saying earlier about the integration with Atorio. It's a challenge that we face constantly, and Yair is very well aware of it. But what we are able to do is we are able to take what does work for each individual DCS and what will be certified as far as a solution, integrate it into Atorio, and then pass that up as kind of our single source of truth.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, there's no, silver bullet type of approach or solution or something that works for everything. This is why we believe it's not just a product play market, it's a solution, meaning that we're engaging with our customers and partners and making sure that we are on the right track of this journey. And we're going to start with, okay, let's see what you have in place. Let's see what is allowed. By the way, there are going to be some places that we have stronger relationship with the DCS vendor, in some places we are not. And it's going to happen again that we actually had this discussion earlier today, that in some places, maybe we can start with an offline process of, digesting project files, which are engineering files, configurations files from the DCS applications. Or because we have multiple ways of collecting data, we're going to start somewhere. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen instantly and that's it. Sometimes, by the way, it will require some iterations. One, I can tell you that once everything is deployed and up and running, it happens automatically. There's no need for additional, I would say, type of activity. But in some places, yes, we do. But it's also a journey that once we have this level of partnership, we're actually going to the automation OEM vendor and trying to find the best way with him to cooperate, because we all want to provide at the end of the day to the end customer the value and the results, because he's responsible for making sure that those operations are up and running from a cybersecurity perspective. So yes, there are challenges and sometimes political challenges, and those things we need to solve. But again, at the end of the day, I believe that if we care about the same cause and the same goal, safety, availability, and those types of things, we need to collaborate together to make it happen. And easy said than being done, but again, a journey.
On that note, are you happy with the security solutions currently offered by your OEM DCS vendors? And if not, what do we need to improve on?
So, happy is a strong word sometimes.
Yeah.
We make, how can I put this? We try to make lemonade out of lemons where we can. Generally with the DCS vendors, we opt to take the path of least resistance in integrating what tools are available, unless we feel that, it would just be unresponsible of us to continue to use said tool. That has happened once or twice. We have had to push back pretty hard, and we have done that where we felt it was warranted. By and large, though, we try to utilize what we can of what they offer, and owning multiple discrete DCSs, that can be very challenging. And like I said, the integrations is one of Atorio's biggest value props in my mind.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, even with Delek and other customers we work, we start with what's out there. And then we accomplish more things along the way to provide the value that the end customer is seeking. And I also think that it requires, again, more than just technology. Even from working with the supply chain and start adding things from a legal perspective, I'm seeing those things are happening as well in the market. I can tell you that I had an interesting discussion with an end customer that told me that up until now, the automation OEMs and the DCS vendors told us what to do. We're a Fortune 500 company. We're going to start acting like one, and we're going to tell them what we need, and they're going to do it. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but at the end of the day, they are the end customers. And yes, I know that it's much more harder to go and change a DCS vendor or something like that, but this is why I think it's a journey. So we're going to start with what's out there. We're going to start with leveraging the existing controls that are existing in the environment to try and put everything all together. And then we're going to work together on identifying how can we enrich it. How can we provide more added value that maybe the DCS vendor didn't bring, but we can still do based on our flexibility as a platform?
I will say that one of the biggest lessons that we took away, and it may be obvious, and it should be obvious, is the more we see, the more the more visibility we gain, the more we realize there are challenges, there are risks. One of the biggest advantages I think we have as we've gone through this journey is the fact that, by not acknowledging risk or not being able to see the risk, you tacitly accept it. The fact is, now we can see these risks, we can document them, we can make business-driven decisions about them. We can decide if it's worth challenging the DCS vendor because something is insecure, or if it's better to simply use the provided tool and integrate it. All of these are things that happen with maturity as the journey continues, but the concept is I feel we have a much better view of the overall environment and we're able to make decisions from a business perspective a lot more confidently.
Any additional last questions? Good. So I want to thank everyone for your time today joining us. Again, as I said, tomorrow, whoever wants, I'm going to try and talk about more of the strategic approach and how to try and make it more easy and tangible and drive it into action items, what we do suggest to some of our customers, by the way, not based on Atorio's technology or anything like it, but based on working with this market. Thank you, Chris, for joining me. And have a great conference.